tough days, this COVID-19 crisis, their thoughts, we'll share their thoughts, how we live this crisis in different areas, especially in their areas, and what are their thoughts about what will become beyond the crisis. Are we going finally to see the light? Are we going finally to overcome the catastrophic consequences of the COVID-19 on the economic and financial markets? What has been done in the health system? What is wrong? How can we improve things economically, financially, and in the health system? So we have today 4 specialists, professors and doctors. Dr. Manuel Rocha Armada was former president of European Financial Management Association.
Still is.
And he still is, yeah. So happy to hear that. Who is actually then the president of European Financial Management Association. We have also the honor today to have Professor Ephraim Clark. He is one of the specialists in the world in international economics and finance. He is also editor in several journals and has his own journal and review, Frontiers in Economics and Finance. He's professor in Middlesex University, also invited professors in several parts of the world. We were, both of us, Manuel, Professor Ephraim, as pillars of the international finance conferences in Tunisia, in France. We organized also the Real Option Conference in Paris. We are very old friends. We are a family. That's why we meet again using this webinar to try to help the community by the ideas they will provide. We have also Professor and Dr. Ben Ali, who is one of the best conspirologists in the world. I think he's number 2. Mr. Muhammad is back. We have Dr. Muhammad Bouhaji, who is specialist in inspiration economy, and he has also a network all over the world in several countries where he tries to help also in a series of conferences about COVID-19, how to fight it, what are ideas, what we can find, how to overcome. So today we are here to hear your thoughts about what is happening, about the crisis, beyond the crisis, your suggestions, and we inform you that you will be live also now on Facebook. So many people will be following you. We didn't let many people enter the room because we don't want noise, as we call it in finance. We don't want we don't want white noise. We don't want to disturb you. Let's focus and let's try to suggest and to think individually and collectively on what could happen in the future and what was happening. We'll start by the actual president of European Financial Management Association, Professor Manuel Rocha Armada.
Oh, I think that my very good friends, first of all, I thank Belala Monder and Ephraim and all the others, of course. These are, as Monder said, like family members. We know each other for so many years, and we are very, very good friends indeed for many, many, many years. And I think that probably I'm not the best person to start with this. I don't know the time, first of all. I don't know how much time I have, or each one of us, because I give seminars to almost so many countries in the world. So this is a summary of the so many webinars I've been participating in. So I don't know. I can talk for half an hour or 15 minutes or 20
Yeah,
minutes.
15 minutes is you are for 15 minutes for each one.
I have to speed up.
We'll give you after
Okay,
time to speak again.
okay, so my thanks sent already. Then I have a couple of a piece of paper with so much information that I have to look at this very closely. I don't understand myself from what I wrote. And then before my brief talk, let me inform you that I've never been a member of any political party in my life, like my father. So my views are absolutely independent, and I'm for myself. So this is very, very important because what I'm going to say, it might be seen as having some political bias or some kind of bias. Then I have no magic stick. Nobody knows what the world is going to be, but in particular within the next 1 or 2 years, and mainly for the future. But this is kind of paradoxical. Although we don't know what's going to happen during 1 or 2 years, but because of several aspects that this pandemic episode brought our minds, that paradoxically, I am more certain in terms of the future than, or less uncertain in terms of the future than as I am compared to our present time period. I will try to explain you. This is a pity because, in particular for Europeans, we know that European Commission and the European Council will be meeting on the 19th. So after the 19th or somewhere around, we could be more certain in terms of the next 2-3 years and eventually to the future. We don't know that. This is a pity because the decisions from the European Commission and mainly from the European Council will be absolutely determinant about the future and many things. So this is my brief introduction, the structure of my introduction, these 15 minutes. Please count 15 minutes right from now.
You can have an additional 5 minutes.
No,
President.
Yeah. Then I am deeply convinced from what we have kind of learned from what we saw during this pandemic period. We don't know, 1 year or 2 years or something like that. This is kind of paradoxical. From what we saw, we can anticipate almost surely what the future is going to be in terms of course, in terms of the main vectors, the main directives, the main objectives, the main kind of what can I say, the main drivers of our decisions. This is kind of paradoxical. One thing is, I divide this in two areas, broad areas. Then I will leave the most, the particular cases are more interesting when the audience asks for questions. I have so many examples from so many areas, all sectors. I have ideas, but I want to introduce my structure. First of all, the environment, sustainability, biodiversity, and all bios, biotech, biomedicine, bio this, bio that, nano this, nano that, all these pollution, all these things we did learn now. And also, these are consequences of the pandemic period. We could observe that these are very important drivers for the future. We cannot escape from this. This is my conviction. One or two people in the beginning might disagree. I agree that you disagree. I'm glad you might disagree. But in accordance with the European Commission, most likely the European Council, all the investment projects will be sponsored unless they do care about climate change, biodiversity, sustainability, and all these bios, It will be very difficult for the World Bank, European Central Bank, IMF, or whatever to sponsor, even the European Commission, to sponsor projects unless they comply, they obey to these, let's call basic type of vectors for the future. Of course, other things are necessary. I'm not going to sponsor a very good project in terms of climate, sustainability, biodiversity, if economically and financially is not viable. So these are the two main conditions. They have to be to obey to these main vectors, as well as financially and economically viable as well. So these are the two. Otherwise, it will be very difficult for these. I can talk a little bit more. The second, broadly speaking, that we did learn, those in academia, I worked in firms. I'm advisor in several countries, Angola, Mozambique, Cape Verde, Brazil, Mexico. I'm advising several firms, but the digital, the telework, how do you say, Ephraim? Telework, how do you say this in English?
I haven't said it in English. I always say it télétravail in French.
Ah, ok.
I don't remember.
Je comprends français. Je parle français un petit peu. The digital era with so many dimensions, so many, for every sector, primary sector, secondary sector, tertiary sector, in medicine, education, in all sectors, the digital has to be there almost inevitably. But there are several dangers I will talk about. So also, let me remind you that we did cross several crises in the world. First World War, Second World War, the Spanish flu, influenza, almost all of them, the economic activity decreased for about, I don't know, we don't know exactly, but let's say 20% or something like that. And like now. So we dealt with crises, but this crisis has several differences, very important. We never had destruction of buildings, wars. Our buildings, everything is absolutely identical, as opposed to First World War, Second World War, or the pandemic thing. So that's why we had a war scenery. We don't have a war like the First World War. So our buildings are exactly the same. We did not destroy anything. So that's why unemployment was quickly absorbed by this Marshall thing. Quickly, without any problem, liquidity was introduced in the economy. So our crisis is different, very different from this one. Consequently, people were not confined. They were working outside within the reconstructing the economy, building, so without any virus around. So we did not have any banking crisis, no banking crisis. In my country, for example, we have a lot of money. We have money for the entrepreneurs, but they don't know how to spend it. It's a highly bureaucratic type of thing. So in our days, as opposed to 2008 and something like that, Lehman Brothers, so we did not have a banking crisis right now. We don't have, except one or two major cases. We don't have that. So also another important thing is that probably we should not think to begin doing business as usual. Business as usual is most certainly, I'm strongly convinced, cannot be in the future. Business as usual, we have to change several things in our business, in our economy. Business as usual is a dangerous, maybe not immediately, but in the medium long term, is something that probably we have to begin from the scratch, in accordance with these two, broadly speaking, main vectors. So our business have to change somehow. So otherwise they will die. And I'm defending that many firms should die. They should die. Sooner or later, they have to die. They cannot survive. They will die anyway. They would die anyway. So the public policies are very important. The intervention of the state, the government. That's why I'm not in favor of a very strong intervention of the state or the government, but during this period, transitory period, I think the government has a role to play more than usual, more emphasis on the government. And also, we did learn also that the scientific research is playing a huge role for the future. Scientific research, meaning that the universities, scientific research for universities in different areas, not only bias, even economics or management or whatever, but in many, many areas, scientific research is something that we have to look at. Although there is some question whether the scientists do agree upon the same, have the same ideas about the same problem. This is another question, but sooner or later, scientific research has to play a huge, huge role. We have to follow these guys. So education, executive education, education of engineering, medicine, management, all this has to play a huge role, not only because they have to absorb the novelties of the scientific research, but also because they have to adapt as workers. They have to, your business as usual is not possible in the medium long term, not possible. Exactly the same is a dream, We have to change our firms for the future. So education is going to play a huge role. Executive education is going to play a huge role. Also, poor countries, well, the problem of poor countries. Some weeks ago, I had these statistics, more than 100 countries asked for money to IMF for help. They cannot pay the loans. How can we fight against poverty? How can we fight against poverty is some other interesting problem to deal with. Also, in terms of, let me go to another idea. I have several ideas. This is a very interesting point. I did listen from some guys working in some international, very well-known international organizations. I'm a friend of them. Some of them, some are Portuguese, by the way, but some others are from some other countries, and which means that if we tell, is this possible? Climate change, digital. If you look at the young generation of our days, you see that these young people are far more aware and worried about climate change, sustainability, biodiversity, bio this, bio that, climate, and digital world than we were. So we have the potential of the young generation for the future. So one of the reasons why I'm strongly convinced that these will be, broadly speaking, almost certainly the drivers of the economy for the future, whatever the sector. Let me give you the example of the young generation. They are not politicians. They don't care about politics, almost. They do care about climate change. They do care about biodiversity. They do care about sustainability. They are very well trained in the digital world. So the future is promising, highly promising, apart from international organizations that they will only sponsor those projects if they obey to these criteria, as well as the economic and financial criteria, in order to be sponsored financially. So digitally, there are some funny things. For example, there are dangers. We have this home office, these webinars, meetings can be done from home. We can afford a lot of money and a lot of time working from home. But working from home too much may be extremely dangerous. So in terms, physically speaking, in terms of mental, so we cannot spend all the time working from home. We have to move, we have to practice sports, we have to have some fresh air, we have to meet people personally. But there is a danger of the, I don't know, this was the ex-chancellor of my university, which is a very well-known person from MIT, from all over the world. He called it, how can I say, economy, low contact economy. Low contact economy has potential, but has huge dangers. So there must be a trade-off between the télétravail, Ephraim?
Teletravail,
Télétravail, a trade-off between the two. A reduced economy, low contact economy, this has advantages as well as huge dangers. So, and finally, let me see the measures taking into consideration these main drivers, generally speaking, the measures that each country has to take is dependent upon their own country, is dependent upon the structure of the economy, is dependent upon the speed of education, is dependent upon within the same sector. Some firms might change quickly than some other firms. Larger firms have a potential for acting in accordance with these main drivers than small firms. So within same sector, we might see different speeds of adjustment, let's say, to this type of economy for the future. So, and in terms of education, of course, also machine learning, artificial intelligence, which is my favorite topic right now, has a huge role. Finally, Monde, Belala, I'm finalizing my very broad topic, saying that if China, let's call by their names, China, United States, and Europe, those who are, and Israel, with artificial intelligence, machine learning, are developing so quickly, and they don't care about climate change. If they don't care, well, Europe is a different thing, but China is not. United States, maybe yes, maybe not, we don't know, but Europe do care. We do care about this. And if nobody takes into consideration introducing regulations, which is not easy, the gap between the poor and the richest countries in the world will be huge. Think about China, United States, Israel, and Europe, and as opposed to Latin America and Africa and so many other countries. So the gap, the speed of productivity is so huge, might be so huge. If nobody introduces rules, controls, and there will be a huge gap between poor and rich people. So I will leave my concrete examples in so many sectors in all these two main drivers for the future. I'm convinced that these will be the driver for the future. So thank you for listening to me.
Thank you, Thank you very much, Professor Manuel Rocha Armada, the actual president of the European Finance Management Association, for all your thoughts.
Due to coronavirus, otherwise I would leave my role in Dublin. So it was postponed to next year. So, so otherwise I would be out right now.
Yeah, thanks very much, Manuel. You are not politician, but your father is.
No.
Manuel.
In the traditional terms of politics.
Thank you for all your comments. We welcome really later 1 or 2 questions for you. We are very old friends. We know each other with Ephraim, I think, since first or second IFC, maybe more than 20 years now.
Even back in the multinational finance days.
Ephraim, myself and Philip and you and Mondar, we helped to organize the first finance conference in Tunisia. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Yes, one on that time we got the Nobel laureate, Ari Markovic also.
Yes.
One time we invite also Myron Scholes. Inshallah, we'll do the same conference next year. For the moment, we'll continue on our presentations. Dr. Moaz Ben Ali, I think he joined us. He's here.
Yes. Hello, everybody.
Yes,
hello.
Hi, Doctor. Dr. Ben Ali is currently medical director on oncology at Novartis, and with Novartis at the region of Europe, presenting in Paris. He's one of the best specialists in the world in cancer. So we have spoken about some finance and economic aspects. Let's see your thoughts about the crisis and the future from your point of view in the healthcare system. According to Manuel, the president of EFAMA, European Finance Management Association, there will be in the future no more business as usual. All this is finished, and we have to think about the role of firms and digitalization. So let's Dr. Ben Ali speak now.
Okay, thanks again for the Mediterranean University for the invitation. Thanks to Mr. Mondar Bellallah for this hot topic and interesting and so fascinating topic. I'm sorry again for this misunderstood, because I was thinking that the meeting is for 6 p.m. and not for 5 p.m. I'm sorry for that. Today, about the crisis in point of view, physician and the clinical research expert. And I will highlight the deficiency. So I know that there is a lot of positive points, such as the solidarity and the engagement in the health care professional. But I want to speak about the deficiency in the goal to perhaps find a solution and to take home message from this mistake in order to be ready for a future pandemic crisis or anything else that could be similar to this period. So first of all, I want to speak about the healthcare system. I think that the biggest patients that was infected and infect other area such as economy was the healthcare system. And the first soldiers to be absent in this war that we are facing is the healthcare system. So I think that there is a misunderstood in the community speaking about the healthcare system, instead of saying that we have a health treatment system and not a healthcare system. Because in the basis, the healthcare system is founded around the idea of prevention, and to start a war against a virus, the first barrier is the prevention. We are speaking about masks and so on. So this is the prevention that was really absent. The second thing, when we are speaking about a healthcare system and about a pandemic crisis, we are speaking about international solidarity. So, and the regulatory authority who is organizing this international solidarity. So we are speaking about the WHO, the World Health Organization. It's also a big deficiency in this war, because I think that the World Health Organization again show that it isn't possible for her to continue managing the healthcare system in the world in the same way. And we see today that I think that there is a crisis today between US and the World Health Organization. And for the first time, I'm in line with President Trump in his war against the World Health Organization, because this misunderstood or this complicity with the big mistake, starting by not highlighting the pandemic. I will not speaking about the vision or what we need from them is a vision, or we need from them a prevention, but at least managing correctly the crisis they didn't do and they can't do, due to the fact that they use the money collected from country for other things than prevention from crisis. So this is there is no solidarity. We find that there is no solidarity between countries. And if we want to eradicate a healthcare problem such as cancer or a virus crisis, we should have an international solidarity to do. So this is another big mistake. The second thing that I wanted to highlight, that if we are looking today to people suggesting solutions, they continue making the same mistake. I listened a lot to many interviews on the TV or on the mass media today. They are all speaking about the economy, and they forget about the healthcare system. And when they try to speak about the healthcare system, they are mentioning only the health treatment system. There is a big difference. They are mentioning only the hospital and the salary of nurses and physicians. This is not a healthcare system. So again, I don't think that that the world is taking messages and correct messages from this crisis. This is the second point that I want to highlight. The third point is after the crisis, which healthcare system we needed? Do we need the same healthcare system that show a big deficiency in managing an easy crisis? Because the world is not knowing the virus and the pandemic crisis in 2019 or 2020. This is something that the world known already 2 or 3 how I can say siècle. I didn't find the word.
Centuries.
French.
Centuries before. So not new things. And we find that our health system, our healthcare system, is not able to continue in this world of digital. Today, we need or we deserve a new healthcare system with more solidarity, with data, global data collection or data generation that will enhance and help the changement of guidelines or the solidarity in terms of sharing the best practice, the sharing of information, that it was also a big problem today in the management of this crisis. So I think that the world deserves, the new world deserve another new healthcare system, not forgetting or taking into account the prevention as a first stone to build a healthcare system, not forget the clinical research as also an important stone in the healthcare system, and sure, last and not least, the treatment system, is solidarity in the treatment system. I think that God today help us to avoid a big crisis in Africa. People haven't at all even a treatment system. People haven't at all access to innovative treatment. And I think that the first role of the World Health Organization is today to rebuild again an international and really a worldwide healthcare system. So this is a very important thing. I think this is the 3 points that I want to mention today. I'm ready to answer your question. Thanks again for the invitation, and I am happy to be with you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ben Ali. We'll keep the room for questions later. Now, I think we give the speech to Dr. Ephraim, Professor Ephraim Clark, who is one of the specialists in the world in international banking and finance. He's editor of Frontiers of Economics and Finance and editors of other economic and finance journals. He'll give us his thoughts about maybe about the crisis at international level. In international finance, he often writes many papers about segmentation, integration, globalizations, and efficiency. And we let him say to us if all this works with this COVID-19. He was invited with Professor Manuel several times to come to Tunisia, where we have done conferences together. And we enjoyed very much, and we'll repeat it again if things will be better in Tunisia, and I hope so. The next conference will be on February 2021. Now, Professor Clark, let's give us your thoughts.
Okay, thanks a lot. Mond, I'm happy to be here with all my old pals, Manuel and Monder from the old days. Thinking back how long ago it was makes me feel even older than I am, you know. But, every time somebody mentioned, I'm saying, yeah, that was 1995, 1996, things like that. So, you know, well, the alternative is even worse than the actual, you know, if you're still alive, is better than nothing. So, so I'm going to look at this from the point of view of, let's say, of a country risk. I'm going to look at it from this point of view, and I'm going to focus on the United States. And I want to just mention, like Manuel did, I have no affiliation with any political party. In fact, I've never even voted in my whole life, you know, in a political contest or anything like that. But my main source of information on this, what's going on in the States, is CNN. Plus what I read, you know, when I see what CNN says, I think it just doesn't seem right to me, you know. And so I go and I look up other information. And so I'm going to look at it from this point of view, basically from two things, because just recently I wasn't going to do it like this, but then recently over the weekend we have all these riots with the Antifa guys that are, you know, blowing up buildings and policemen and cars and things like that. So I figured I'm going to look at it from 2 points of view, from the Wuhan COVID-2 virus and from the riots, okay, that are taking place. Well, even now, I guess they're still, from what I can see on TV, they still have people out on the streets and things like that. They're going to call in the National Guard. So see what's going to happen in the future in the economy. I think a lot is going to depend on how this political standoff plays out in the United States. Let's say this virus that started off in Wuhan, and you know, and then it got spread all over the world to Italy and then Spain and the United States. Now it's all over the place. This is something that that is, you know, it's globalization power of 10, because everybody's traveling from China to the United States, from the United States to Italy, et cetera, et cetera. So this is globalization power of 10. What it did is it permitted the politicians to usurp all types of power that never existed in the United States before because of the amendments to the Constitution, the First Amendment of free speech, the right of assembly. And what they did is in the name of protecting, in quotes, lives, they basically imprisoned everybody in their homes. Some states, they didn't allow people to leave their homes. Basically, you are a prisoner in your house. If you leave, you're breaking the law. What happened is it closed down innumerable businesses. Small businesses in most countries make up over 50% of the gross domestic product. In the UK, it's about 56%. In the United States, it's around 50%. In France, it's above. So the small businesses are very important for the economic tissue of the country. Basically, what the politicians did is they said, close down, we're going to save lives. Anybody that said, wait a minute, I don't want to close down, they say you're going to kill people, so you're a killer. So basically, you could not even protest that you wanted to keep your business open. I mean, and it turns out that with no thought whatsoever, who is at risk, they closed everybody down. We know who was at risk. The Chinese knew who was at risk. They knew it was the old guys, like me, and like Manuel, and Monders, soon to be. These are the guys that were at risk. I mean, so why not focus on the people that are at risk and let the other people more or less function normally? This would be the normal thing to do. But the politicians seized the day and they took over. So what do we have? We've got now, it's over with basically for the moment. So now what's going to be happening is it's going to be played out in court, and there are going to be court cases held against the governors, the mayors, and things like that. The Supreme Court eventually will make a decision, and it'll be decided as to, are we going to have more government interference in our economic lives, or are we going to have less interference? We don't know how it's going to play out. The Constitution is written in such a way that basically it should not have been possible for them to do what they did in the United States. In France, it's a different story. I'm sure in Tunisia, it's a different story. I'm sure in the UK, etc. But in the United States, basically, they shouldn't have been able to do it. They did it because they managed to put it in such a way that if you didn't go along with what they said, you were a killer. This is what I saw on CNN, So what we know is from past economic history is we know that more government intervention is bad for economic activity. I don't think anybody's going to have, once the government gets in and they do more than just set up the basic laws that let people act within those laws. Once they start managing things themselves, we know that, that it's not going to work as well as if you have individual people making their rights. So remember that the losers, the big losers, were the small businesses and those that worked in the small businesses. Those that lost nothing were those people that were on welfare, some type of welfare in the United States, like Medicaid and, some type of child support and things like that. They basically kept their payments. And the politicians, no politician lost his salary or lost his job. They all kept their jobs, and then you have to go to work. They could work from home. So that's the first thing. Second thing is the riots. So we've got, now that what we've got in the States is we've got these riots, which is ostensibly that we saw on TV, as we saw this policeman kill a guy in front of our eyes by kneeling on his neck for 8 minutes and 56 seconds, I think it was. I mean, that's incredible that could happen in our days. And so it was turned into a white on black, a black on white thing. So I got the statistics. Every time that there's a killing in the United States of a black person, sometimes it's a black policeman that does it, sometimes it's a white policeman that does it, but anytime there were 41 instances in 2019 of a policeman killing an unarmed person, 41. Of those 41 cases, 9 of the victims were black. 19 were white. Every black one that was killed, it was publicized on television. Have you heard of any publication on anything of any of those 19 white guys that got killed, or any of the 9 Hispanic guys that got killed? You didn't hear anything about that. So what's happened, what we've got is we've got basically in the United States, we've got this problem that's from the history of the United States, from slavery, we had the Civil War, we had the Ku Klux Klan, we had all those when I was a boy, we had the Civil Rights March, and we were fighting for, for the freedom of of equality for the blacks and things like that. We got that. In 2008, we got the first black president. You think there could be a black president elected in France or in the United Kingdom? You think there could be an Arab president elected in France or in the United Kingdom or in any country? No, the United States, they put a black president in. In 2012, between 2012 and 2016, the president, the attorney general, and the secretary of state, they were all black people. Now, I mean, somewhere that should tell you something that can't be as racist as people are trying to make it out to be. We've got 12%, basically 12 to 13% of black population in the United States, depending on how much blackness people want to give themselves. We've got about 40%, between 35 and 40% of people that are hardcore Trump backers. Basically, you might say that they are what everybody is calling racist. And then you have in the middle, you have maybe 10 or 15% that they have some on the left-hand side, they have some on the right-hand side, and they're the independents. And these are the people that are going to make that are going to make the decision. So I have another statistic. There were 12 million crimes in the United States in 2019. Of these 12 million, 600,000 of the crimes were a crime of black on white or white on black. 600,000 out of 12 million, about 5%. Of those 600,000, 80%, 480,000 were black perpetrator, white victim. So all the stuff on TV that I see on CNN trying to stir people up that there's some type of a vendetta of white people against black people, I think that's a false thing. And anybody that talks about things like that they pretend like they're trying to unite the country, and they're dividing the country. Therefore, we're going to see we're going to see how this is going to play out in the background of the virus, in the background of, is there really some type of a bias, outside of a normal bias? I mean, let's face it, the Tunisian guys, they like to be around Tunisian guys. The Portuguese guys, they like to be around Portuguese. I mean, you have type of cultural affinities and things like that. The black guys like to be around black guys. I went to school with the black guys and I got along perfectly well with them. And when I was a boy, I never had any contact. When I was a boy, I was completely segregated. All the kids, the black ones, they had their fields, and all us kids, we had our fields. We never got together. I never got together with them until I was a college guy. So I think that we've evolved over that. And I think that now is the time that what's going to happen in the future, I'm going to get to the economics part of it in a minute. But I think that we're going to see if people are going to buy this thing, that it's a racial divide, and everybody is, we have all these racists out there. I mean, yeah, there's a lot of racists out there, but I don't think that they're a significant majority or anything like that. I mean, so anybody, and another thing is, anytime anybody disagrees with you, they say you're a racist. I mean, if a black guy says something and I say, I got a good buddy, he's a Cameroonian guy. I say, his name is Octave. I say, Octave, that's stupid. That doesn't mean I'm a racist just because I think what he said is stupid, because he can tell me the same thing. I just don't believe that it's a healthy way to deal with things. That anybody that disagrees with you says it's racist. So we've got in the United States, my point is, in the United States, we're at a point, it's very, very polarized. We're going to see if we can get it together and people can work it out. We'll have this election coming up in November. It's going to be acrimonious, but if it's worked out in a good way, I think that, first of all, I think that the markets, now I'm going to get to the economic part. I think the markets are taking a look at what's going on. They took a look at what the businesses that have disappeared. As Manuel said, you got to have businesses that disappear. Like Schumpeter said, you've got this creative destruction, I mean, a lot of businesses just can't survive. They're going to disappear. This COVID thing it knocked out a lot of businesses. Eventually, probably might have gone under. Some of them wouldn't, but a lot of them might have gone under in any case. So, you know, so that's something. So we've got resources that are disposable to come to be used in other for other uses. The Standard & Poor's, I just looked at it today. You know, I follow Standard & Poor's a lot, and it's up to 3,050. But when I came here to, you know, for this thing here, it was up to 3,050. The highest point was, I think, 3,200 a few months ago. So, you know, the market is showing a certain amount of optimism. If you believe that the market has any, you know, forecasting power, it's showing a certain amount of optimism. It looks like the U.S. economy is going to come back. If you take a look at the Chinese economy, it's already on the way back, even though they've downgraded their forecast for GDP growth. In France, I just saw on TV that they've downgraded it from a -8% to a -11%. I mean, that is something that it's hard for me to get my head around, something like that, -11%. Fortunately, in France, we have an extremely good social net. And so a lot of the people that would be suffering the most will now be suffering as much as they would if they didn't have this good social net. So I think that the post virus crisis is going to depend on a lot of things that happen in the United States. The court decisions, are they going to decide for more government and governor intervention or less? If they go for more, then we got a big problem, and things are not going to come back, and it's the market itself is going to drop like a stone, and growth is going to really be slow. And if the United States has slow growth, and if China has slow growth, the rest of the world is going to be suffering from that too, because they're motors of the world economy. So, you know, if I was modeling this, I would put let's say a lambda in there, you know, a jump process. And I would say, what's the probability of a bad decision coming? 50-50, you know what I mean? And if a bad thing happens, this will be the value. If a good thing happens, this will be the value. I think there's a 50-50 chance it can go either way. I don't know. I mean, I hope that, you know, people come back to their senses. They stop all this rioting and all this racial talk and stuff like that. They get together and people just start working on their, you know, what people want to do. You want to go to work. You want to have your kids. You want to, you know, have a nice vacation. You know, I mean, everybody wants the same thing except for, you know, a few weirdos out there. So, but one thing is for sure. I think I agree with Manuel. I think that these supply chains in the world, I think we're going to see less globalization, not more. I think we'll see the supply chain shortened, because they see how vulnerable the company is to a long supply chain that, you know, goes all the way out, you know, for its basic stuff into China and maybe Korea or, you know, who knows where. I think that we'll see the supply chains shortened, which means lower productivity, because companies won't be able to take advantage of different countries' comparative advantages. I think we'll see that. I think we'll see a lot more artificial intelligence, because people are going to see that they're less dependent. If they have machines are less, let's say, fragile than people, because if you got a person that's out of a job, I mean, that's a calamity. If you got a machine that's out of a job, it's just a cost that you have to, you know, overcome. But a person, he's got his wife, he's got his children, he's got his mother, his father, and things like that. So I think that that's going to be the outcome. We'll have to see this teleworking. Certain industries lend themselves to it. Like, for example, academic life is something that I think you can do to a large extent from a tele type of, even though I do like the personal contact better. You can do it. Look at us. We're doing it like here on TV, like on this. But some you can't do it. But, you know, like if you've got these personal services that you have. So I think there's going to be a certain amount of let's say, increase in teleworking. Some people might do it 2 days a week and then 3 days a week at the job and things like that. So I think that's what we'll see. And I think that it's up in the air. We'll see. I think, let me put it like this. I think that getting close to the election, we'll see what the probabilities are. We'll see how the United States is getting along with China. You got two huge elephant countries, the United States and China. They're not getting along. and they're not going to get along. We'll probably go into some type of a economic Cold War, so to speak. So that's not good for people's standards of living. But then again, we went through it from the Second World War until about 1990, with when we had the Soviet Union and the United States two worlds apart. I don't see it'll be that much of a bigger problem having China as the counterpart. So basically, from the economics of it, I think depends to a large extent on how the political situation works out in the United States. That's my conclusion.
Yeah, thank you very much, Professor Ephraim Clark. Now we give the speech to Professor Bouhaji, who is the founder of the Inspiration Economy, with a big network in many countries, with a lot of innovations and practical experience, economic of poverty, social choices, reducing inequalities, how to produce and find easy solutions without injecting huge capital. So we welcome Dr. Muhammad Bouhaji. Please, can you give us your ideas, your thoughts? You have run a series of conferences during the Holy Ramadan month on COVID-19. And I think members of your family are employed also in this area. I think your son is a doctor also. So can you please provide your thoughts?
Okay, thanks a lot, Prof. Munder, and I'm very happy to be with this brilliant experts, especially in finance and economics. My background is knowledge economy, but I'm now working in inspiration economy. But I think I would like to focus more on the title of the seminar, which is the crisis and beyond. And for that, maybe I will focus on dealing with emergencies in this post-COVID, as we are now, really in dealing between post-lockdown, let's say, and we are starting to enter the new normal stages, maybe early new normal stages. I believe that, friends, that when crises come, it gives us lots of chances for breakthroughs. And as Prof. Munder said, we do lots of research on that area, and what are the opportunities that can come from challenges, from problems, from crises, and so on. I believe that this crisis will give us, as Prof. Manuel mentioned earlier, that it gave us now lots of interesting research. Research speed, breakthroughs are increasing. We never seen, even though we are living in unprecedented crisis of COVID, but also we are living in unprecedented research collaboration. Being away from the politicians, we see that there is a huge research collaboration. I'm experiencing this myself. We had only about 13 affiliation or networks. Now we are talking about 40 networks just in the last 4 months, where we publish or we do projects and so on. So this means that the people are more ready now to collaborate and to do work that will push lots of things that was waiting for a long time, whether it is environmental, whether it is poverty, whether it is yes, these things are will continue to be under threat, but the engagement of the people, and especially youth, as Prof. Manuel again rightly put it, will really our youth are more ready now for these changes, more ready than us. We adopted this over time, but our youth has now came up with the situation that they know that they are going to lead this coming transformation. So I believe that we are in areas where lots of us, regardless of our age, even if we are in retirement age, as Prof. Mentioned earlier, but I believe that we are also in an age where all of us, regardless of our age again, that we can do lots of exploration, lots of discovery, and even we go to the stage of sustainability. We might see lots of things that we thought it will not be, let's say, we will not see it as relevant to sustainability. It will come. And this will bring for us, I think, the breakthroughs that we are long waiting for. So my message here is that if we just want to go to these breakthroughs, we need to embrace the reality. We need to embrace that we are living in a surprising situation where it calls for us lots of uncertainty, lots of ambiguity, and lots of change. So yes, lots of us, all of us, we don't like uncertainty. Yeah, God forbid now, if electricity goes out now while I'm talking to you, this is uncertainty. Okay, fire come out near us, it's an uncertainty, and same thing for ambiguity. We don't like to go into places where we don't know what is the event will happen. Okay, but really with these changes, I was just listening to Biden now. He was talking. Most of the changes that happen in America and made America lead the world is because America has embraced lots of uncertainty, embraced lots of ambiguity. For that, they led the world. Okay, and I think this is what is used to be even in the Islamic world, used to be in Europe at one time, and so on. So I believe that this is a right time for all of us that we live this this stage in a proper way by embracing the surprises around us. This means a requirement. There is a requirement for this. There is something something that we have to pay ahead from now, which means we need to now stop dealing with the formulas of supply versus demand. We need to go to adopt now a new formula, which has been there and waiting for us for a long time. We've been writing about it, and many people has been writing about it, which is about capacity versus demand. Which means now we need to manage the risk, because the risk is about what? Probability multiplied by severity. We need to manage the risk from reducing the probability. And this means that we need to have a new mindset. This new mindset means that we focus on the capacity, for example, for self-sufficiency, capacity to manage physical and mental stress, capacity to do the balance between, do we want life or we want livelihood? We'll always will have this stretching between going for lockdown or the government has done a good job or not. I believe that lots of government had done a good job by minimizing the number of people who died. But in the same time, as earlier professor spoke also here, is that we sacrifice livelihood. So we need to balance this now, okay, between life and livelihood. And this will increase our capacity to manage future crises for sure. However, again, we need to be more humble. Even if we are scientists, we need to not to let all our earlier knowledge be a shield against us from being selective of what we should learn and what formulas we should adopt. For example, if we are going to now to minimize the probability of COVID wave 2, and it will whether it will kill lots of people or it will affect not our life but even our livelihood by closing down more of SMEs and so on, as we were discussing earlier. Okay, it means then we needed to bring a new formula about health policy, socio-economic policies, and acceptance of a certain level of to be self-sufficient. This formula today is not available. We see that the capital economy is controlling our mindset. All our talk is about what will happen to the stock exchange, what will happen to the salaries, what will happen to the entrepreneurs, and so on. But there are lots of things that is in our opportunity not being tackled. For example, again, as Dr. I think Mu'izz, he was talking about looking at health. We should not look at even not prevention. We should talk about wellness even more than health. Okay, and this is again not available even in WHO. When you see WHO writing and so on, they are missing this a lot. Now, recently, they started to focus about wellness and mental health because they've seen that it's rising so much, and many people are suffering stress directly or indirectly. So what I wanted to say is that this is a time and a moment for us as humans that we can generate extreme curiosity through research, extreme curiosity through doing projects in countries where we are living now, or countries where they need us most. We know now Africa and or areas where there is refugees, areas where there is, people who are marginalized, and we're writing a lot about this. This is the area where we will understand what is happening. See, sometimes if you are in the sitting like me now in a luxury house and so on, you think while you're seeing the news that you'll understand what's happening. But in reality, when you go to the other extreme, you'll understand what's happening because you can't see your reality today. And for that, I believe that we should have more readiness in our cognitive acceptance. We should have neuro alert in our mind. We should really have, instead of living attention economy of what to buy, what to dress, what to know, we should have attention actually relevant to observing what capacity we can improve. And this will not come unless we really, again, start to learn how to get engaged and involved with our community. We will stay, ladies and gentlemen, really by fighting, all of us humans, including myself, will stay fighting that we don't want to go and pushed out of our comfort zone. And always we say it's leading by example. If you don't like it for yourself, then the economy, it will not happen. We have to learn how to get out of our comfort zone. We have to learn how to avoiding something that we don't like. We have to learn how to really even accepting to accommodate something that we don't like. And we have to change our formula of competing with others in order that we become, or we claim that we are winners. It is an age where there is a lot of collaboration possibilities. It's an age where I think we should not deny reality. Otherwise, we'll go into paralysis. It is an age where we need to reframe our way of thinking so that we don't go into what, as economists, we call it active inertia. It is an age where we really can accelerate our activities through better collaboration. And at the end of the day, it will come through paying attention, as I said, accepting that we should really keep our priorities, that we manage the priority, because this will help us to accept that we should live the uncertainty of the moment, so that we move to another stage, hopefully, where it will bring for us this new generation that will be ready to more than us to do the changes, even though there are no enough resources. We live an inspiration economy. We believe that any change you are doing, a real change, it should come with minimal resources. If any change is done with resources or loss of resources, then it is not a real change. Okay, the real change that will raise your capacity or raise the economic capacity or solve the socio-economic problems, it will come not from the dollar, not from the capital-based approaches. It will come from our natural assets. It will come from our social assets and other assets that's been undermined for a long time. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mohammed. Now we give the place to Dr. Nasif Abdelnader, who is the head of research at the Central Bank of Tunisia, to let us know his thoughts briefly. He's not a politician, but he works for the government.
I have to be neutral. I have to be neutral. So, given I am central bank, I have to be neutral. So thank you very much. I'm glad to meet you, really, and excuse me for being late. I joined you in the in the mid road of the Professor Armada intervention. Professor Armada, fortunately, I read your name. Otherwise, I thought that you are Tunisian, because you were speaking, you were talking about
almost.
Yeah, I saw your background. So it's you were talking about the specific problems of Tunisia. I will develop 3 points that you have mentioned in your intervention. First of all, I think the big lesson that this COVID crisis gave us is that is the I can call that the return to earth. Return to earth and the basic social fields. Three fields. First of all, education. And you mentioned the role of scientific research. Health field. Health is very, and research in health fields is very important. And investment in public health is very important. Third is agriculture. So that means that economic policy should be around these 3 points. The intervention of monetary policy, for example, or public policy have to support education, health, agriculture. In my country, in Tunisia, for example, there were a very, very dangerous lack in investment and care in general of these fields. So we are very lucky today to have a low proportion of people infected. The second point, yes, I agree that business as usual is impossible. Even for the IMF, the first proof is the IMF give us the first proof. I think it's the first time that IMF provide money for social considerations. In Tunisia, for example, we I think in February, IMF announces that they will not give Tunisia money anymore because lack of reforms. 2 weeks after, IMF gave Tunisia $700 million that were impossible in normal case. Why? It's to support the Tunisian effort to fight COVID. It is the same for monetary and economic policy. We cannot do the same things in monetary policy, for example, because in Tunisia, the public budget and monetary policy used to support all the effort to support the economy. Now it is not possible because budget have no resources anymore, and monetary policy, the cost of monetary policy is being larger and larger. So we have to think about other ways to support economy, other ways to mobilize resources by financial markets, by other institutions, by sub-state institutions, and so on. The third point, it's about politics. You mentioned that young people now are not interested in politics. They were about bio things and environment and so on. I think that we have to translate all the thoughts in political move, and we have the ability to do that since we are a young democracy in Tunisia. So I think people have to participate in the political life. But you are right. We were fighting to have democracy in 2011. But now, if you see the last elections, only 20% of young people participate to the elections. So they are not interested in politics anymore. But I think it's in the future, in the very close future, young people should translate their thoughts and their efforts and everything they want to do in this country in political in political move. That's the 3 points that I want to develop in my intervention. And thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Nasf, Head of Research. I think all of us, we have given an excellent presentation. If I go back to what said Professor Manuel of Business as Usual about the issues and politics and the real issues raised by Professor Ephraim Clark, about the pandemic and the thoughts of Dr. Ben Ali, about what is happening from social and the gap in social and economic size, what Dr. Muhammad says, Nasf about all those recent changes. All of you, I think, in the panel today, if I count the number of experience you have, maybe it can sum up to 200 years, 2 centuries of experience, huh? Ephraim. In fact, Ephraim has at least 40 years experience in international finance and banking. Manuel also, I think, about 40 years. We become old Manuel now. Manuel, who is the president of the European Financial Management Association, the actual president. I thought he was the former, but he was the actual. Nasif, when we started the first international conferences, Nasif, who is the head of research at Central Bank, he was with us in all the conferences, Ephraim. And you remember, Ephraim, when we got in the big screen presentation by Harry Markovich.
Yeah, that was a good.
Yeah, that was good. On that time, Nasif was organizing the workshop for Central Bank.
Oh,
the actual CEOs in Tunisia and managers and directors were on that in that conference.
And
If
Professor
not,
Clark was the moderator. Professor Clark was the moderator of the workshop. Do you remember that, Professor?
yeah, I remember. Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was good time. Let's, after this COVID, think positively, and we'll do it again in February, inshallah, and we'll make it larger. So we'll give room to some questions.
Right. Can I say a few things before?
Yes, sure, Mr. President.
Very briefly, just to clarify, not to respond, but to clarify something. Randomly, I did choose the idea. Let me. This is random, really random. Some people get confused about confinement. Confinement for some people is people that were, let's say, confined at home. Although, because I have a huge experience in Brazil. I'm visiting professor in 8 universities in Brazil, mainly in São Paulo. And these guys, they have a very funny concept of confinement. They are confined if they are at home. Well, to be confined at home cannot be done compulsory. It has to be done with certain rules. People, they have to be informed, educated, how to be confined, how to be followed. But if a crazy paranoid president, absolutely paranoid president, the vice president is my family member, from the army is my family member, the number 2. So I know them very well. So if they send them to the firm closed, confined in a factory. This is not confinement. So they argue that confined is something related with home, not related with the firm. In French, the usine. So this is not confinement, which is a very paradoxical type of a concept. So confined in the firm means transmission very easily, but this is not confinement. This is to save the economy, to save this poor. You see, this is a very strange concept. This has to be clarified. And then some other thing, which is politics. They are not interested in politics. I would say they are not interested in the traditional way how we interpret politics. Oh, all of us, we are politicians. All of us. So the traditional way of being a politician has to be changed. And this is why the young generation is against the traditional way of doing politics, but themselves, they are highly political type of guys. So this is a clarification, at least in my mind. Second thing is closing down. My colleague Mohammed, with whom I agreed quite a lot with what he said, and also with almost everybody, but Ella Abdi as well. So closing down SMEs. It's not closing down SMEs. There are SMEs highly technologically highly successful. They don't need to have many people. They have robotics, they have a digital era, they have artificial intelligence, they have machine learning. So SMEs, for example, during the pandemic period, Portugal has 3 or 4 months. Now we are almost free, except Lisbon, because of the illegal immigrants. Illegal immigrants was a huge problem. So that's why our rate increased a little bit. But in the entire country, my small, how do you call this in French, or I call this a small market, a very, very small market in the quarter. These ladies, they earn thousands and thousands and thousands of euros because nobody was willing to go to shopping centers. Everybody was afraid. So there were so many small firms earning thousands and thousands and thousands of euros. Otherwise, they would never earn. So the fact that being small is not a problem in itself. It means, are they doing business probably not as usual, never more, but are they able to fit their activity somehow respecting, inverted commas, respecting these 2 main vectors, as I believed in, climate change, pollution, climate sustainability, biodiversity, and digital world. Are they able to incorporate these or not? So closing down SMEs is not necessarily the case. An economy can survive with very, very good SMEs, very, very, very good. But they have to be business as usual, probably never more. Probably never more. This is something that I need to clarify because before. Sorry, Belala, but prevention, solidarity, poverty. Oh, this is what I said. Exactly what I said. If you don't take care, the gap between the rich countries and poor countries is going to increase substantially. Is going to increase substantially. There must be some mechanisms internationally in order to decrease this obvious gap. If we don't regulate the artificial intelligence or machine learning or whatever production lines so they can produce without stopping, without diseases, without strikes, without anything. So, and the other people in Africa, Latin America, and many other countries, they don't have the expertise to do that. So the gap is going to be huge, huge. So, and finally, Tunisia is a touristic place, highly touristic place. So it's very important to think about that, to think about back to earth, as it was said, education, mobilizing resources, etc., and the clever SMEs. If you don't have the capacity to have huge, clever, nicely structured SMEs, and of course, with funding from IMF. IMF did change as El Abdi said, because it is very close to Europe, so they want tourism to go somewhere. So it's not a surprise for them to finance and to have some arguments. You work in the central bank, probably you can have good arguments for that. So these are the 3 or 4 main concepts I did want to clarify before the discussion, which is by far the most interesting part. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Professor Manuel, President of the European Financial Management Association. SME is very good. Mohamed Yunus and the ideas also of Mohamed Bouhaji, Dr. Bouhaji go in the same spirit. But there are 2 models, I think, about SMEs in the world. You have countries where banking institutions and the financial system is funding directly the SMEs. And you have another model where countries create special banks for SMEs to fund SMEs. What happened, for example, in GCC, mainly in Dubai during the global financial crisis 2008, and we have seen also this in all GCC countries where we want to grow business at any cost, let's grow at any cost. There is a speculative bubble, and then many SMEs who were funded by private banks, not by the states, they closed the doors, they shut down, and they flew to their countries. They skip. We call them skips. So if I think there is good SME and there is bad SME. Good SME if we control all the chain.
Of course.
Yeah, I agree on that. Bad SME if there is no control on the flows of money. You give money to anyone to launch his business. When there is a shock in this economic system like now, many SMEs will shut down, many small companies will be bankrupt, and the state will not help. So this is the picture which is repeating itself starting from the global financial crisis and today. And I think all what we see around the world is money, is about money. Now, if we go even to the origin of this COVID-19, I'm not sure about the sources, but it seems there are two laboratories in China, and one of them is funded and where we have some holders who are from the US, like the name of George Soros. And as we know in international capital markets, Mr. Ephraim Clark knows this quite well, George Soros is one of the big speculators in the world. And all this crisis, what is happening today, we see there is a complete reshuffling and restructuring of all the economic and financial system. We saw that just before the crisis, we were pushing everywhere for cryptocurrencies. Even some central banks start in their exchange system, mainly in GCC, like in the West, to accept Bitcoins and cryptocurrencies, these new languages, these monies, this type of monies with no background behind. All people who are corrupted in the world, who are an AML, anti-money laundering, can hide themselves between all these kinds of transactions where we cannot even trace the origin of money and because there are no flow of goods. So I think we are internationalizing the world, but we don't know in which direction. But I'm convinced that all is about money. And therefore today, either in medicine, either in economy, and in finance, we lack ethics. Either in economy, ethics is fundamental. There are codes of ethics in every profession. Before going to the bank, you have to sign it. Before signing your contract. Before going to hospital wearing the white blues, you have to sign code of ethics. Every one of us has code of ethics. But are we applying 100% ethics? Let me give you an example, very simple example. In the finance world, there was some years ago a big scandal in London. Ephraim and Manuel, you can maybe inform me on this, about the LIBOR scandal.
Oh.
This big tragedy, this LIBOR scandal, it means that big banks in the city, there is a kind of collusion to act and to distort the real rate. So by distorting the market equilibrium, by playing on that rate, by pushing it up or down, 1% up in LIBOR means that Tunisia have to export all olive oils and all what it has as a burden in debt. Interest rate will increase significantly, increasing the burden, and we have to export everything against the exchange to pay to pay the interest rate. And there are big players in the market and big banks and big financial institutions who play with the LIBOR. And as a consequence, it was a big scandal. And what happened, one of the people who was observing and who was the head or the central bank governor in London and the city himself, he was observing all this. And then after, when we say, this is scandal, we have to solve it, we have to investigate, we give him the right to be the one who will give the fairness opinion of what happened while he was implied in the game from the start, which is unfair. Same thing in France when we speak about corporate governance and financial institutions and corporations in general. And on that time, the CEO of one of the big banks, I will not cite the name, but you know, Société Générale, there was bad practices about corporate governance as reported by academics. But in practice, we say there is a report which was given to the government in France, and the report has the name of the guy who was CEO of Société Générale, and who said that corporate governance in France is fine, there's no issue. While all studies are reporting big issues, and some of those people are implied in these issues. So you cannot speak about really ethics. What we lack, I'm convinced today, that we lack ethics in finance, that we lack ethics in economics, that we lack ethics in every field. I don't know about medicine. Dr. Ben Ali can, this is my question to him. Is really ethics respected as it should be in the healthcare?
Yes, Mondel. So, as mentioned by yourself, so we speak a lot about ethics, but to respect them is another thing. We are always saying that the healthcare system is based on patient at center, and this is the ethics. At the end, we are finding always other ways. We are always finding ways to avoid to respect ethics. So, and conflict d'intérêt. So this
conflict of interest. Yeah.
The conflicts of interest is one of the big problem that we have. And you see during this crisis how this problem is really heavy. There is no expert who isn't in a direct conflict of interest with biopharmaceutical company. There is no expert today that we can find to work with EMA, the European Agency of Medicines, to work with FDA, who haven't a conflicts of interest with the biopharmaceutical company or with health insurance. So this is the big problem that we have today. There is no scientific that can do scientific research or clinical research without getting a budget from biopharmaceutical company. So this is the big problem of health today. This is the big problem of medicine today. It's really the problem that we should all think about the solution for.
Thank you, Dr. Ben Ali. Maybe Emmanuel, I saw he has some hot answers in his mouth. He wants to speak.
No, just a very quick opinion. It's an opinion. You might disagree, but taking into consideration what Ben Ali, if I may call you Ben Ali, you call me Manuel, I'm very glad. And see, biomedicine is a very promising area, biomedicine. And so, but you talked about solidarity. I remember that. Solidarity, prevention, solidarity. Well, Trump, well, I know I can feel that some people here are not in accordance with my views, but I respect them. Trump decided not to help the World Health Organization. Well, solidarity, banning all these things, well, as some interesting thoughts about new healthcare system. Yes, a new healthcare system. Business as usual probably is not to solve your problems. I have been in Palestine. I have so many Muslim students, so many. My university has 90% of my students are from a Muslim world. I love them. It's a very highly fantastic people, extremely good students. And so I know them extremely well, and I know all these concepts in the Muslim world, absolutely. And the thing is that when you talk about this kind of business as usual, and not thinking that you have to do something, this brings about some other important thing that some people here that does not agree with me. I agree, it's my conviction. Historically speaking, I agree that the government or the state should not interfere too much in the economy. I do agree with that. I think we don't. But there are periods in our history. The crisis is so huge that you cannot hope for private sector to help. Well, in my country, they did. Fortunately, they did. Even the politicians, they put aside their ideas and they joined together, except the extreme right, extreme left. So almost everybody helped the government to solve this our problem. This is one of our miracles to solve this problem. There is some hope. There is some hope that the government might interfere a little bit more, dynamically speaking. This is kind of a dynamic type of thinking. I don't agree. I do agree that the government should not interfere too much. But there are periods in our lives, like the pandemic period, where the government has to do something, or in terms of health, in terms of counseling, public policies, helping the poor, helping the tests for coronavirus, supporting the economy. So Brazil, which I know very well, Paulo Guedes from Chicago. This is a stupid guy from Chicago from 40 years ago. He strongly believes the invisible hand in the economy. Can you believe the invisible hand in Brazil? With millions and millions of poor people, the invisible hand to solve this problem. This is out of this world. It's changing.
This is rubbish.
It's changing their ideas because he realized that the invisible hand that more or less we do agree in normal times cannot be applied because the government has to help inject money of several types, several kinds, different sectors, different types of people, etc., different business, different ways of helping people. They have to. So dynamically, I'm against, but there are periods where I am in favor of more intervention, as it should be. So this is very bad when you stick to the periods of the Chicago boys of 30 years ago or something like that. Even in Chicago, most part of them, they are not, except from a French, they are not anymore these type of people. There are many others doing completely different approaches to this problem. So solidarity, yes, but solidarity internationally and even nationally. And nationally in these periods comes mainly from the government. Cannot be, it's almost impossible to be, there are a few examples of good private firms helping people. We have examples in my country. They did that, absolutely. But you don't, there is no hope to the private sector to support money, to inject money in the economy to save people. There is no hope.
Okay.
Lose the hope.
So if you wanted that I interact with you, I'm at 100%. I agree with you at 100%. The first of things, the solidarity, what I'm saying as solidarity is the international solidarity, and I will come back to the roles of the government and the solidarity in the nation. So the international solidarity, it was clear that it was absent at all. And this is the first rules for the World Health Organization. Today, with the COVID-19, we understand that diseases are not recognizing the frontiers.
Yes.
You know, I'm head of the Oncologists Without Frontiers for more than 10 years now, and it's for the same reasons that I will continue for this year, the same reason that you continue your mission for this year, because there is this problem of COVID. I understand that there is no international solidarity to eradicate cancer. The same thing, I understand it when I see that the COVID is spread from China to Italy, from Italy to other European country without doing anything. If we wanted to stop it, we can put all that we have as tools from Europe to it. You can give this to Italy and we can stop it. It's easy. We did it before. We did it with SARS-CoV-1, with MERS also. So I think that the solidarity between countries, the international solidarity was absent. And for the first time, I'm not a fan of Trump politics, but for the first time, I can agree with him when he was saying, I will stop financial help to the World Health Organization, but I will give the same amount to the country, for the development country who need this money. And I agree with him. I know, I participate a lot of time to the budget exercise of the World Health Organization, and I see that they can't manage correctly budget, and they are an answer to the unmet need of healthcare on the world. And the COVID-19 is one of the exercise showing that they are not able to continue managing healthcare crisis in the same way that they are doing today. And I have a lot of examples. Cancer is one disease also showing the inability of the World Health Organization to treat international crisis, international problem. And I was one of the physicians and the first physician, the first oncologist saying that if today we want to eradicate cancer, we shouldn't think about it as a nation or as a region. It should be an international program, a worldwide program to eradicate cancer. It's the same thing than terrorism. And I built for that a foundation with Mount Sinai in USA and with my personal therapeutic in London. And we start working. Yes, COVID-19 put a little bit our project in a time, but we will do it. And we will do it without, unfortunately, the World Health Organization, because we didn't find a strong help from them. We didn't find a real program for them to eradicate such a problem. Do you know why? Because there is people who hadn't even access to treatment. And you understand, all of us today understand that there is a big difference between a system of treatment, access to treatment, and the healthcare system. Now I want to speak about the other point. You were speaking about the role of the nation or the role of government in the healthcare system. It's sure, for me, it's clear that the government can't manage everything.
Yes,
Government can put under the hand of biopharmaceutical company, for example, medicines and the drugs, but the prevention role of the country, this prevention role for the healthcare should be under the role of the country. So the prevention is one of the security of the nation. So it shouldn't be privatized. It's the same thing that than army today. So this is a big problem. The clinical research today, the continued medical education today, if you go and you ask all the physicians today how they are doing their continued medical education, government will not finance the continued medical education, and physicians can't exercise without continued medical education. Today, the continued medical education is under the hand of biopharmaceutical company and under the hand of insurance, health insurance company. And this is a big mistake, if I can't say. And this is why we can't speak about ethics. We can, yes, government try to put rules. Government try to put laws. Government tries to put transparency rules. But as Professor Bilal was saying, I think that there is a problem here because we are always finding ways to avoid these rules. We are always finding ways to avoid ethic rules. So this is in my idea the big problem that we have in our healthcare system.
Well, when I said the government should interfere or help it was during this pandemic period. It's
Okay.
transitory, not the definitive type of, as you are assuming. I did not say that.
Okay, for me, I think that this pandemic crisis is not the biggest problem for healthcare. There is this crisis is take advantage from the mass media, and really is not the big problem of the healthcare. We have others today, other healthcare problems that are more deadly than the COVID-19, worldwide more deadly. So I think this is a problem that can help us today to treat our healthcare system and to think about a worldwide new World Health Organization. Really, to be honest with you, I'm really excited for a new project for the World Health Organization. And I think the first step for us to establish the rules of the healthcare system in the future, you were saying that the economy is managed worldwide today. The same thing for the health system. I think it should be managed worldwide. We shouldn't continue thinking as nation for that. We shouldn't close our frontiers if there is a pandemic tomorrow in Germany and not in France. It's not the solution. We shouldn't think about the treatment of our patients in France and close the frontier for the Maghreb country. It's not possible. It's not possible to continue today developing drug for the European southern country, but not for the south of the Mediterranean. It's not possible because the disease are not recognizing the frontiers. So we should think about a new solidarity, new rules for expanding the innovation, because the virus are spreading without recognizing the frontiers. The disease are spreading without recognizing the frontiers. But why innovation? Why healthcare should recognize the frontier? It's not the solution, I think. And we should adapt our healthcare system to our new economy, established worldwide. The same thing, the healthcare should be established worldwide. And I'm one of the physicians, I'm one of the researchers today who started speaking about that 5 years ago, saying that, stop, we should thinking about a new way of managing the World Health Organization. It's not a way that we are doing. It's not the optimal way that we are doing today. So this is my point of view. COVID-19 is not the big problem. The big problem is the healthcare system, who is really in a step of, I think he's in the intensive care unit today. And we should have what we call emergency treatment to try to, it's not the biggest problem. I'm not afraid about this pandemic. To be honest, I wasn't afraid, and I'm not afraid, because I was thinking as a physician, but as a researcher also, and I was seeing that we can manage, but we can think for the next step, we can think about the prevention as the first soldiers, and after that we will come to the treatment system, and we will come to this international solidarity in managing this kind of crisis. So this is my point of view about that.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ben Ali. I agree perfectly with this vision, because the crisis is only what we see today is the visible face of the iceberg, which means that we fail everywhere in the world to manage correctly this crisis at its roots, from the roots. So what we have to think now is how to reshuffle, how to restructure, how to reorganize the actual institutions and our healthcare system, and all our systems, even the education system. Our universities are not able to follow. Many universities and schools all over the world are closed till today. And we as teachers, we have some difficulties even to connect in Zoom or on Microsoft, and we don't know about them before. We start to use them recently. The crisis pushes a lot of us to use those things, those tools, and to change his way of life. I agree also that everywhere in the world and every country since the creation of the earth, we have some wrong people in right places, and we have some right people in wrong places. This is the a kind of culture things. As long as we don't we continue, I think solidarity is the rule. Solidarity is the magic word. Selfishness destroys everything in the world. Solidarity, sharing resources, sharing skills, sharing knowledge. This is the key of success. We have seen that the international community was not sharing. We were, all of us, more or less selfish. We start even at country levels, and we start some countries. We saw news, I don't know if they are right or wrong, saying that some countries are spying others regarding their research in COVID-19 and others. I speak about big countries, not small countries. I speak about leading countries, not followers. I think as long as we continue to think this way, we cannot progress. So there is ethics in everything. In selfishness, there is ethics. In solidarity, there is ethics. There is also a word we have learned, a key word, which is that selfishness will destroy everyone. Maybe Dr. Bouhaji, you have some thoughts about this, because inspiration economy, you have been in Africa and Asia, Russia, many countries, in GCC, and you saw how people were handling their life, what their inspirations. They want to become number one, to create things from scratch, from zero, or to transform. So if you have some thoughts.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. And sorry, I had to leave you for some time and come back. So I'd like to sum up whatever I learned today, that there are lots of ideas that will take us forward. And these ideas it need from us to be tested. I mean, not anymore, Prof. Monder and other professors who were earlier also spoken. Not anymore we can talk about best practices. Today we are entering a new era. This new era need what we call test practices. It means that we need to test now lots of things. Even when I talk about ethics, we've been talking about ethics, but there are known things and there are unknown things. Okay, what type of ethics we need to adopt in this new era? What are the priority of these ethics? And I think this will not come by coincidence. It will come by three approaches. The first approach, as you all rightly said, and all of us will agree, is that it is the flow of research will be higher. So let's use it. Let's collaborate with each other. Let's see research from multidisciplinary approach. I mean, the good thing about this today, that all of us, even though maybe the connection between us is sustainability and economy and so on, but we are coming from multidisciplinary background. I myself, I'm medical physics, and I studied medicine part of my life, and then I go into economy. So for that, I see things from that the more we go for holistic solutions, we can bring better organization. Even WHO, the more it is run by multidisciplinary people, the more it will bring solutions. So the first thing I was saying is about research, and it should be multidisciplinary research and based on collaboration. The second thing is that I believe that people need to do lots of projects together. For sure, change will not come by government. I don't believe that governments in the next future, it will be, yes, they will lose a lot of things from democracy, But what we will gain for sure. Democracy will go down. It will not go up, unfortunately. But what we'll see lots of people. They want to see change that they are believing in. I'm talking about my children now. They are in everywhere. They're trying to do some change, and they believe that they shouldn't deal with Arabs only. They should deal with all the people from different religion, from different background, from different disciplines, and that's a new sign. But we need to encourage these projects, field projects, more than theories. And the last thing is we have to be availability of, as I said now, for example, how many of us have really tested how to live and to go for livelihood? Personally, I've been trying to do this because this is what is the new capacity, is to balance between life and livelihood. Should we today go and sacrifice? We go outside and we sacrifice my mother with me at home and sacrifice, but I need to work also. So what are the balances here? I couldn't see my son, for example, now for a month. Is this right or wrong? So these formulas, I think we are learning to deal with it, and it's increasing our capacity over time. So I believe that these three formulas, if we work on collaborative research, if we work on really doing projects, live projects, and if we are available to test the new ideas, for sure that we are going to enter into a new era. And as I said, Prof. Mander, and you know that we've been talking about this a lot. Since this is seminars done by Tunisian University. Tunisia is one of the best countries that is capable to be a mediating country. I mean, you are in Africa. You have a continent that is it is the future. It have lots of resources. People are underprivileged a lot. The marginalized, the refugees, you name it, you have it there. Okay, poverty, all the SDGs that is the United Nations talk about, all of it, you can see it in Africa, how much we need to do. So this is an area where all of us as scientists, I'm talking now in this group at least, we need to test our ideas there in that area and test them really, and not go by, test not our ideas, test the reality. We live the reality from seeing the extreme. We don't say, we can't live the reality while we are sitting in one position. We have to change our position so that we see, and we build up the three-dimensional, let's say, visual thing. This visualization is not by coincidence. What I'm talking about an experience we've been doing this in the last 5 years. And this will increase our possibility to bring the better hit rate of the future. As Prof. Manuel said rightly, we can't predict the future today. This is for sure. Lots of I work for different governments in GCC, and I am paid, highly paid for future foresight. And I can tell you lots of things I said now. It needs to be for sure change. We are talking about 20 to 50 years plans that we set up for governments, for supreme councils, whatever. Now all of these need to be changed because the reality is different thing. It will come only these vectors that Prof. Manuel mentioned about. It will come only through testing. Even the vectors he mentioned about, that vector of the ecosystem, the vector of technology, and so on. It will come only through testing. So let's live in this. We are now in an age of test practices, not an age of best practices. And let's be proud to live this age. Let's be positive-minded. And by the way, as I said, we have been writing lots of multidisciplinary research. And one of the popping up research that we've been writing a lot now, not the COVID, we've written about even medical research, but now we're writing a lot about mental health because it is a big issue that we're gonna see it not in our generation only, in the future generation. They might be a successful generation, but they will suffer a lot of mental health issues unless we work with WHO and other organizations to emphasize the role of wellness, not health also, as I think Dr. mentioned, the doctor of cancer, Muaz, he mentioned about that issue also. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Dr. Mohammed. I think that Nasif also he wants to speak, or Dr. Clark, who have some hot sentences we are waiting for.
Yeah, thank you very much. I was thinking about this the size of government intervention. Yeah, it's a big issue. What's the size? What's the optimal size of government intervention? I was thinking about of a definition of this optimal size. I think that government should not resolve the problem for everybody. It's a waste of resources. But I think that the government, the intervention of government should be to defend the more vulnerable population or businesses, and I agree with Professor Ahmad that it should be limited on in the time. So I think I don't know if you agree with me. I'll give you an example of this misuse of the government policy. In 2012, interest rates in Tunisia were very low, and there were a line of financing for exporting businesses. But exporting businesses, given that they have the ability to mobilize resources from the banking sector, they save their receipts in foreign currencies. They do not exchange in Tunisian dinars, and they use to finance all their expenditures in dinars by borrowing from the central bank. Result, there is a lack of liquidity for the other sectors, and there were a lack of exchange of currencies in the exchange market. That they have in trouble twice, in the liquidity market in dinar and in foreign currency. This is an example of an over intervention of government, of policy in the economic field. It's the behavior of businesses were very negative, and the consequences were very bad in the on the economy. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Nasif. Any other thoughts? Ephraim?
The only thing I can say is that about governments is governments love power, and the information is power. And there's so many instances, so many opportunities to get information on people. I think that the big obstacle, big fear that I have is that governments just get too much power. And I'm for any type of a system that can limit the power of any segment of government. Could it be the judicial sector? Could it be the legislative? Or could it be the executive? I think we've got to have controls on those guys, because if one gets it over on the other, they just usurp the power for themselves, and people have no more freedom. I mean, just think of the information that they get, like in Levallois-Perret, which is where I live. They've got more cameras. You can't go anywhere, and they could trace where you've been for the last year. But they've got you on video. Every street, every corner, every building is videotaped. I mean, it's okay. They say, well, if you're not doing anything wrong, what do you care? But I mean, maybe you don't want people to know what you're doing. Maybe you don't want your wife to know what you're doing, or your children, or something like that. So, I mean, I tell you something. This government thing. The theory is, people say, well, government can do it. Government can't do it. They can make general rules, in other words, and as long as they stay outside of the internal activity. As long as they stay outside, they say, this is the rules, you respect these rules, everybody agrees on them, that's fine. But as soon as they get in and start into the nitty gritty and they start making, like for example, I'm going to ask Ben Ali this, this whole thing of this pandemic that we've got. I mean, to me, it looks like from the beginning, it looked like that the politicians were getting out ahead of the scientists. In other words, they started closing everything down, and they had, say, we're going to save lives, so don't go out, don't talk to anybody, put a mask on, wash your hands. I mean, that sounds pretty simple, but I think that that before they took actions like that, had they consulted with the doctors, and the doctors take a look and see what's going on. And this goes back to what we've talked about in the past, was this international solidarity. Had there been the international solidarity, I think that this pandemic never would have gotten off the ground. So, anytime I'm one of these guys that's kind of very wary of too much power in anybody's hands. That could be in an academic department, it can be in a university president, it can be for a country. I think too much power just gives people too much of a possibility of taking advantage of the other people. That's my final word for the day. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Ibrahim, I agree 100%. Everything, when you have it more than it's optimal, it will not be beneficial to the system. Too much power will end with very bad consequences. But I think also, and I share all what you said, I can make a small summary in one word, and I think it is the key to everything, is selfishness.
Okay.
Why selfishness? Because we know quite well, and professors here in finance know this quite well since a long time, because one of the first Nobel laureates was James Tobin. And we know, all of us, the famous tax, which is tax of Tobin. So what Tobin says and what some try to apply it later, it's very simple. If we tax transactions on capital market by very profits on those transactions by very, very small amount, 0.01%, the money we collect can eradicate poverty from earth. And we can put that money to fund research and medicine and everything and all social things. And every human being on the earth can be very happy. But do people accept the Tobin tax? Did anyone play the game? They know all the social benefits. But the first opponents to this are billionaires people. Because if you are a billionaire, Ephraim, one day, and we can never, you, me, Nasif, or Manuel, president of EFMA and dean of the school, as long as we are professors, we can never be billionaires, because billionaires take their billions from business, and we are not in business. So, and we saw from this digital thing, some people 22, 23 years, like Mark Zuckerberg and others, they become billionaires. Jeff Bezos from Amazon and all these digital things, he owns only 5%, I think, of Amazon, and he's one of the richest in the world. And his divorce with his lady cost him a lot of money, and it was the costliest divorce in the world. So billionaires, when you have billions, 100 billion, 200 billion, and we ask you for 0.01%, this is some hundreds of millions of dollars. So you don't give them. That's the issue. But we see that some of those very rich people, They create some funds. They give money to cancer organizations, to healthcare, to ONG, to those. Why they give this money? Not spontaneously. In general, when they get sick, or one member of their families get sick, they will fund research and they will give some money. I think selfishness is the key. As long as people are selfish, selfishness will destroy humanity. And we saw in this COVID, as Dr. Ben Ali said, an example of lack of solidarity, which when you take the piece of money, when you take the coin and you throw it the other side, when you don't say solidarity, you say selfishness. So as long as we are selfish, we cannot succeed. We can succeed individually. US can succeed individually. China can succeed individually. Germany can succeed individually. You can close your frontiers. You don't accept anyone. You can succeed individually. You think it's an illusion. It's a mirage. It's a mirage. You can, the country kind of mirage. The country can think that he succeeds, but no one succeeds in this world because this small microsome, I don't know how we call it in medical terms, Dr. Ben Ali knows the term, this kind of virus, he wins. He fights against humanity and he wins. Why he wins? Because of the lack of solidarity, because of the selfishness, because everyone closes his frontiers, because people cut heads to international organization. The idea, for example, like we have central bank, because when we have a central bank, we have a banking system, and all those banks in the system contribute to central bank, and they put a kind of money quota with central bank. When you have the World Bank, it is the same thing. When you have the IMF, it's the same thing. But when we have this this world organization, we don't have this. We don't have it. It doesn't work with the same system. Countries do not contribute with a quota, because when you contribute with a kind of quota, when you have a board there, when your board, it's managed by Mr. X or Mr. Y, it's another issue. But the board there has to apply minimum of corporate governance. The minimum of corporate governance is to put the right skills in the right place. You are in health, you bring the specialist. You want bread, you bring a baker. I'm wrong, Ephraim.
No, that's exactly right.
So,
can I say a few words, 2 minutes? Or?
Yes.
I think that there was a kind of agreement today between all of us. This pandemic period did show us so many problems, so many mistakes from everybody in the planet. So crisis, as the Chinese is a day, but the crisis is an opportunity. This crisis did show us that there are opportunities for the future. And for the future, there are options. For my options were very clear. Well, inside these dimensions, you can split these two very broad dimensions. You can find so many different situations I thought to talk about. But one thing it seems real, business as usual, it's very difficult to maintain. Business as usual, exactly as usual, only few will survive, only few, for several reasons I did talk about. Talking about, so innovation, reinvent, I don't know the name, I think in English it's reinvent. Innovation is something that we should care about. And curiously, when I look at Tunisia, I see sea, sun, wind, nature. I see so many, when I go to Cape Verde or when I go to Azores Islands or many other countries like Tunisia, touristic things, I can see all these things that they are free. They are free. It's an opportunity to explore them. And Tunisia as a location in terms of the other countries, many other countries in Europe, in Africa, for example, it's very close to Europe. It's very close. So there is an opportunity. And there is an opportunity. So business as usual, I suspect we have to move quickly from this business as usual. I suspect in all areas. Some of them, they will survive, some of them. I don't know for how long, but many of them, they have to change, clearly. So we did agree. Solidarity, of course, solidarity. Let me show you one very quick example from in Europe. Can you believe that European Commission, European Union, there is no an instrument, a budget, taking into consideration asymmetric shocks? Think about now, the North versus the Mediterranean people. The Dutch, the Finnish, the Swedish, how they think in terms of the South. So asymmetric shocks, they call union, but there is no particular budget for asymmetric shocks in the economy. So union, solidarity, union is a vague word, even in the European Union. So asymmetric shocks is something that doesn't exist. Hopefully, there is hope that Ursula von der Leyen proposed this distribution, taking into consideration these shocks. But let's see if the European Council, the Council, does agree with these asymmetric shocks and solidarity is really something true. Let's see if this is true. So this is not because it is Tunisia, because it is Africa. This happens within the context of the so-called European Union. Asymmetric shocks they don't care about. So let's hope that solidarity, it does exist. It does exist. We should fight for it. And I don't give up very easily. And I strongly believe in the multidisciplinarity, as Mohammed said, collaboration, mutual collaboration. I have been in Palestine, fascinating people against cancer. Ben Ali should know what I saw in Palestine, in Hebron. Go to the PPU, Polytechnic Palestinian University. Go there and see the millions they got from Korea, the millions they got to a biotech, nanotech, biotech, these 3 dimensions of bios in order to fight against cancer using big data, three-dimensional type of thing. This is a good example that with some kind of expertise, you do not depend, you depend from Koreans. And they have a fascinating lab fighting against cancer. Fascinating lab with a guy working in Barcelona in this supercomputer like we have now, as Portugal is one of the few countries to have these super hyper ultra computers in the world. We have two by now, by the way. So there is hope for solidarity. It's again and again and again, innovation, creativity, and action. And action. Oh, well, we all agree, business as usual, very difficult, but not impossible. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Any other thoughts before we close?
Yes.
Any other thoughts, questions? I would
Mr.
like,
Munder,
yes.
okay, just I would like to thank all Professor Noor and for their very interesting presentation, from which we learned a lot, and with a lot of idea, a lot of suggestion, a lot of this. And I think that we conclude that we have to have a good health system, education system, research system, and we spoke a lot about solidarity, about donc many words which come solidarity, but Mr. Professor Clark said that not he don't believe a lot about this, but as you said, they are perhaps our education system fail about because this person who make mistakes, it's a product of our education system and our if they are don't have a lot of skills, and if we have a wrong person in the right place or vice versa, perhaps it's perhaps is the fault and of perhaps democratical system which lead some political person to reach high level of responsibility, and we have to think about all this, because with this idea, if we set up a new area, as said Dr. Muhammad, with El Dorado, it will be El Dorado, but this new area with solidarity, without gap between country, between people, etc. Perhaps if this new area, this El Dorado, if they're not well managed, and it will fall. So we have to look up, because we point out the person and the structure which has a lot of responsibility in this situation. But we can build a good area, an El Dorado. But if this El Dorado is not well managed, this El Dorado will not work like what we aimed to be. So we have to see our education system, because if this is not well managed, bad managed, if it's our responsibility. So we have, as Mr. Nassif said, the political too, because if they're not a good political system, and we will not manage it very well, this El Dorado, this area which people is happy and all works well. So the reflection is to because we say sharing too, and how we share the responsibility between political responsibility and between people, like the responsibility between private sector and public sector. As we say it a lot, if we like a policeman state or another state, a regulatory state, and providence state. So we have to think about what we like about our states, which have a lot of power. And thank you very much. And thank you, Mr. Munder, for choosing this good subject and this good theme. And I reiterate my thanks to the whole speaker for this very interesting presentation. And thanks a lot again. Thanks.
Thanks all of you. So if you don't have anything more to add, we'll close. I thank all of you because. Hello?
Yeah.
I have to thank all for the significant presentation.
Okay, so thank you. All these contributions, so these presentations, we'll have another webinar after tomorrow on 4 on the same time, where there will be Dr. Ben Ali already booked. We try to book them in advance. 3 deans, one dean from Kuwait, from Gast University, one dean from Abu Dhabi University, and one dean from Tunisia, from Lycée and Collège Ideal. You are also invited if you want to be in the panel with us, because the next panel will be to look forward what is after the crisis. So all of you, you are welcome if you have 5-10 minutes to be in the panel. And I will be really happy and proud to have all of you in the next panel. So we'll have 3 deans plus all of you. It will be big panel looking of after the COVID-19, after the crisis. We'll send you the invitation. And thank you very much again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Thank you. Bye. Bye.
Dr. Munder, thanks a lot. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye. Bye.
Yeah.
Bye.